Well, in any film that I've ever worked on with Roger, there are three main elements that he's looking for. One is humor, which he considers tremendously important. Another is action, which he considers very important. And another is sex, which he considers important, but not quite as important as the other two elements, I don't think. But it's funny the way these things pop up, because, for example, in my script for Caged Heat, hand your script in, and what Roger does is sometimes he'll give the notes right on the script and hand it back to you. So you get the script back, and you get little marginal references like breast nudity possible here, question mark, which, yes, you realize, yes, it is possible here, and you don't want to get too idealistic, because actually you don't have negative feelings about nudity anyway. So you go, yes, Roger, indeed it is. And that's the bargain you make with Roger. If you buy his, it's never articulated, I don't think, but if you buy his concept that pictures that audiences like contain these three major elements, action, humor, and sex, and you really buy it, and you kind of commit to getting as much of that stuff as possible in there, and if you also want to make a good picture and tell a good story, then the best of both worlds happens. He gets a movie that contains these things, and he's confident of releasing it, and you get a chance to make a picture very much the way you want to make it.
Caged Heat. Enter the female jungle of women's prison, USA. A seething hell of steel and stone where bodies behind bars ache with hunger for a man. Any man. Where caged passions ignite in carnal confinement and explode into violence.
I think he liked the presence of the heavy violence in Caged Heat, but it was more important to me because I thought we were making a very profound observation to point out that psychosurgery was going on in American prisons, and in order to emphasize that point, I really wanted to dramatize it in as strong a way as possible.
Caged Heat. Rated R.
Well, now, 2 years later, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest comes out, and that's all about psychosurgery. But Roger Corman made the first movie that actually said there are illegal lobotomies going on in American prisons and this kind of thing. And oh, that's the missing element I forgot to mention, is the social statement. That's the thing. It's always, we need action, we need sex, we need humor, and a slight social statement. And I think that's terrific. You know, I really like it a lot. Before I directed a movie with Roger, he sits you down. We went out to lunch at a place, and we sat across the table from each other. And in 1 hour, he articulated what I consider to be a fantastic approach to movie making, and one which clicked with me instantly. It was stuff I had believed in, felt, but never really articulated to myself. And it became certainly my style of filmmaking. And I think it's one that works, and I think all good pictures have these things in common. And the approach is to try to bring movement. Should we start walking? Sure. To try to bring movement to everything so the eyes remain stimulated, to bring the actors up front so the audience gets to know them. The motion thing is very important. He says if you can't have motion because you're in a tiny little room, then get a lot of different angles so you can create motion with cuts. He points up to the chandelier over his shoulder and says, see how interesting that chandelier is over my shoulder. That's a great background piece. Go for those whenever possible. And he says, look at the vase here with the flowers in it. Isn't that a nice foreground piece?